welcome to We're Not Wizards. We are the best, but not wizards. Enjoy the show!
Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for the autumn because it's getting cold and dark and I don't like it. It's raining outside and I want it to be sunny. I want it to be bright and sunny. I want to be running about, going on a lovely, I don't know, maybe a treasure hunt. Maybe, I don't know, a Yarhar hunt. I have no idea because it's cold and all I want to do is just sit inside and solve riddles of the Cloud Kingdom. You know, reach out, branch out. I don't know, maybe feeling ill, maybe feeling sick, might need to go down the Unicorn Clinic. I don't know if I'm going to be here or if I'm going to try and escape. Maybe escape from an earthquake. Maybe there's going to be an earthquake escape. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I don't want to look big. I want to look small. Very small. Almost microscopic small. Almost creatively small enough to create maybe mosaics out of algae. And there's only one person I can speak to about diatoms.
Hi.
It's got Sabrina Soba here.
I'm happy to speak to you about all of those things.
All those things. We're just bringing up topic after topic. It's just, you know, that's what they do. Is open up and then we end up talking about like, why is there a golden pineapple behind you on the
behind my head?
Behind your head. Why?
Oh, it's a corkboard pineapple.
What does it do? Is it for memories? Do you like put stuff in it to remember stuff, or do you throw things at it like darts and stuff when you get?
It's got like push pins in it right now. It used to be hung on the door to leave little notes on the door. Pineapples are a touchstone fruit for myself and my partner. So we like pineapples, and so we acquire pineapple themed items.
Is it a pizza related pineapple thing?
Is it a pizza? It might. It's flat. You could probably make a pineapple shaped pizza and serve it.
Could you make a miniature pizza out of pineapples and have pineapples as the base and then have different stuff on top of it, like a dessert pizza that was made out of pizza pineapple rings? You're just wondering, when are we going to talk about algae?
I was thinking you were going to ask if we could make a pineapple pizza design as an algae mosaic, which I think the answer is yes, you definitely could do that.
You've not listened to the show because we never ever talk about somebody's game until about minute number 45, until it's like the last kind of bastion. You've got your website, which is Ludoliminal.
That's right.
Which is obviously very, very difficult to say 3 times fast without making a muck of it. And you've been involved in game design for a decade. And then you say a decade, and then you go 2013, and then I go, that's not. No, a decade is 1993. That's a decade. That's what happens in my mind with a decade.
No, I believe you there.
But let's go to the side and let's go back, because what we like to do in the show is we like to have a glimpse back at the mitochondria of the past before we look at the plankton of the present and we go on to the algae of the future. Not connected, but they're all really small. You know, like my talent. What's your kind of your educational background? Are you an academic type person? Because you seem to kind of be branching. You've got your books out there. You've written books. You seem to obviously have an interest in a little bit of science and stuff like that. So what's your kind of your going way back? Would you consider yourself an analytical person or?
So my professional career is all in games.
Right.
But from video games. But I did go to graduate school for entertainment technology.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so that even back then it was games all the way, but I do think a lot about games from the perspective kind of related to academia, like how are games more than just entertainment. That's been a big theme of work that I've done over my career. So
in terms of what are you looking at, kind of like benefits to playing games and stuff like that, societal benefits, connections with that, skill set,
absolutely.
things like along those kind of lines?
Yeah, play is so primal in how we understand the world. So, and understanding the world is just another phrase for learning. So I think it's natural to think about, like, when you're producing games or making games or designing games, I think it's natural to sort of think about the learning process, what you're learning, and like capturing that mysterious attitude that players bring to the game, where they don't expect to know what to do necessarily at any moment. They don't expect to get it right at first. They're like there to just be open and learn, and that's a wonderful feeling as a human. And games like help us feel that. And so, I don't know, that has always fascinated me. That like the experience of the game is more than the act of playing the game. It's something more meaningful for us.
In terms of then kind of like gaming as an education, and this has always flummoxed me at school, is that when they're teaching kind of kids kind of maths and English and things like that, is that there's a great opportunity for games and a great opportunity for them to bring in kind of fun elements to make something fun. I mean, and I talked to I've got my son is, what is it? What is he? He's a child. But he's about to go into high school.
Okay.
So this will be his last year of kind of like what we call primary school here. But looking back on how he's learned and stuff like that, it always seems to be remember this and try and understand that. But there seems to be a missing opportunity for people to sit down and say, if we made this into a game, you'd probably remember it and maybe pick it up and kind of understand it. And I've always never understood in terms of the practical applications of learning. As in, if I'm teaching maths, it's like, well, I know you understand now how to divide, but here's the practical application, how you can use it. And if you look at kind of like some of the more advanced board games where people are kind of figuring out kind of victory points and battle statistics and stuff like that, then they're naturally kind of using maths, but they don't know that they're using maths. And I always feel like when they're going kind of through their academia, that there's a lot of people that could learn stuff. I did chemistry at university, and there's a pile of stuff that I would have understood a lot better if it was represented in kind of like almost like this is a kind of a game format, and this works on this and this works on this level, and this is how kind of like this kind of comes together. So is that the kind of stuff that you kind of focused in, is how can we use gaming not as it can be, yes, it's leisure, but also at the same time, the gaming experience can be branched out into helping people be people and grow and stuff like that. Yeah.
Actually, I worked on a virtual reality game about chemistry, basic chemistry skills.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So I've been there and done that, like tried to, I definitely, I love that stuff. I love thinking about like how do we embody these ideas in a space where it can be playful but also possible to build. And for much of my experience with that, it's been focused on digital games and video games. And board games are similar but different. Mm-hmm. I think every game has, like you said, like there's stuff embodied in the game, because games are, when it comes down to it, representations of real life in some way. They're models, and it's just like how much does the fidelity of the model to the real world matter, in terms of like what you want to get out of it, if you want it to transfer to the real world. So like you play a chemistry game and then you actually can do something.
Yes.
In a professional chemistry situation, or at least an academic chemistry situation. That is emergent from games, but also to go deep on a subject, you kind of have to be intentional as well.
So in your day job, are you are you kind of, what is it you're doing on a day-to-day basis? You say you're involved in kind of actual video games. So is it the academic side of video games, or are you kind of helping people pull noobs and level up and
No.
here's my glowing sword?
No, I worked at a video game company. Well, a video game asterisk, because we did a lot of different things. The company does a lot of different things for 13 years.
Wow.
There's a studio here in Pittsburgh where I'm based called Shell Games, and SCHELL.
Right.
Wow, I used to be that I could not spell the word shell without spelling it SCH, and now I just did it wrong.
There you go.
My deprogramming is happening.
You've passed on the other side. You're now free. We can now stop. We've done that's it. We're 15 minutes in, and therapy's done.
Yep.
You can just walk away.
Something to unpack there next session. So there I worked on a lot of digital games and all sorts of variations thereof, like tablet, MMOs, location-based, things with physical props, like just a huge diversity of different types of projects. I don't have that day job anymore. I left in 2018. And now my day job is my own company, Little Liminal. And it's the work that I do there, which I mostly design board games. And I also do some consulting. And I also do some, and that consulting is sometimes about game design, sometimes about playtesting.
Right, okay. Because to me, playtesting seems to be a thing that people can get very, very right, or they can get very, very wrong. In that it can be emperor's new clothes in playtesting. In that you can playtest. I could playtest a game with my friends, and they're acquaintances. They don't like me. If I put a game in front of them, they're going to say, right, okay, the 3-player works, but the 2-player's terrible, and the 5-player gets so crowded it's going to take us 3 days to finish the game. Whereas you do get people that they playtest a game in front of like a group of friends, and they're just like, this is the best. Talk about terraforming Mars killing. This is just amazing. It's like, well, it's nice. It's a trick taping game. It's got nothing to do with terraforming Mars, but thank you very, very much. But in terms of the playtesting side of things, what are you doing with that? How are you helping people with the kind of the playtesting side of things?
For folks who need help augmenting their playtesting. So I work with local families here in Pittsburgh for my games. And have them play my games, usually blind. So usually I'm dropping a game off and they play it without me.
Wow.
So talk about intense playtesting. And that's partly a factor because I started my company during the pandemic. But it has its advantages when you're working on board games in particular. It also comes with like a lot of, it changes how you think about that first playtest with non-friends and family. And when you go beyond friends and family. But in addition, now that the world's opened up a little bit more, I'm starting to do more playtesting in person and facilitating that for some other folks, digital right now. So people who are working on interactive games for kids and want to play test with kids and their guardians, and arranging for that to happen. And then I facilitate the playtest, and I record it to some extent and do some notes and synthesis for them. So that's the kind of playtesting that I do, is like from my company standpoint for others.
Okay. Is there times where you've kind of like, you've gone in and changed the game completely because somebody's went, oh, that should be green, and they've went, oh my goodness, yes, you're so right, and it's kind of helped take a game to kind of like the next level? Or is it always kind of small little, maybe incremental changes that you've helped with it?
I've seen both of those things result from playtests. And there's so many different ways to answer that question. I've definitely seen the change the color. Yeah. Usually that's not a regular playtester. That's a stakeholder whose opinion is really important.
Yeah.
That you have to listen to, and they don't even have to explain why they said it should be red instead of green.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just do things because the people who care about the project and who are supporting it have an opinion, and you want them to like what you're doing. And so especially with projects that involve a lot of like maybe it's a work for hire or something like that, then there are times when that just makes sense. I've definitely had playtests where big changes happened after the playtest. Usually it's this isn't working.
Yeah.
Like big changes are often, I don't think, I'm trying to think if I ever have a playtest where a brand new, like, go this direction positively from the playtest emerged directly from the playtest. I think it's usually like something about what we're currently doing. There's some friction there, or it's not hitting the note in terms of the experience you want to hit, or there's something that's being ignored that we think is like a place to double down on instead. And so then there's changes that emerge after sort of reflecting on those observations, which tend to be, it was like more high friction than we wanted in some way.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's what emerges.
But is there like a standard that people should, because playtesting doesn't seem to have like a standard, that there doesn't seem to be kind of like almost like these are the 3 levels that you should have for playtesting. You should cover it off. It all still seems to be kind of like a fiddle around, kind of like in the dark. I mean, do you have like a set of standards that you work to that say, okay, for the bronze standard, we're going to make sure that everybody can play the game from, the rule book, and that none of the major rules, if we bring them in, are going to actually break the game, to the gold standard, which is I can chuck a box at people. You could probably chuck this box; it'd probably hurt. It's just and it's like, this is when I forget I'm not actually recording the video. That I just held up a small box in my hand, and people are going to be like, "Oh, I'll probably edit it out anyway." But that you can put the box in the rule book at people and then walk away, and then you can come back and kind of gain the kind of the feedback. I mean, do you work to kind of like a set level?
That's where it's so interestingly different. One of the ways it's interestingly different between video games and board games, and the fact that I ended up doing, just even from the very beginning when I switched to board games, but when I worked in video games, we bring families in, and we'd observe them. So they'd play. We try to be like hands off. We're watching them play, and it's usually one person or group in like a set length experience, and the game is driving the experience, because that's what you get in video games. The game drives the experience, so like you get stuff. In board games, the players have to unpack the box and do everything.
I mean,
you can certainly run playtests where you're guiding them, and I have done that at like conventions, or if I'm playtesting with like friends and family, or I might do a teach instead of have them learn to play, especially if it's like limited time and I really want their feedback on the gameplay versus feedback on the rules or how the scaffolding for how to learn to play. So depending on what I'm playtesting, because when I playtest with families that I don't know, I'm dropping the box off.
Yeah.
For me, that forces me to really think about the rules, and the rules are a huge part of the experience. You can have a great game with a crappy rule teach, for like someone opens the box and they have a really hard time understanding. And like complexity and perception of complexity are 2 very different things. So if your rules make the game seem complex, especially with families, and they get overwhelmed, and I've definitely had that experience with my games, like the game can be great when they already know how to play, but learning how to play is very intimidating and prevents them from getting to the fun. So for me, I end up playtesting rules much earlier than I think maybe other people do, and it's just so different from video games, where you certainly do playtest comprehension of the game, but the game can bring proactively so much more to the player's understanding of how to play, and do so much more guiding.
Oh yeah. I mean, using this lovely box, this small box game, which I'm not going to say because we're here to talk about your game and not anybody else's game, but there's nothing to stop me if the rulebook says deal 5 cards to each player from dealing 6 cards to each player. But if I'm playing a video game, it's like you've got 5 resources. It's like, I'm going to take a 6th one. You can't take a 6th one. You've got to take 5.
Right.
And it also depends on the interpretation of the rules. I review games. I do write-ups and review games on a regular basis. And if you want me to not like your game, the easiest way to do that is to not, and you expressed it absolutely, is to prevent me from finding out where the fun starts, how quickly I can get to the fun. Because an ideal game to me, it's almost like, it's like any kind of, it's like set expectations, as in here's an absolute overview of what's going to happen on the game. Because I have had so many games, I've had so many games that I've played where there's not an overview of the game from on the front page that says this is the game and this is what you're going to do and the winner is going to be. And I've played games where you don't find out the winner until you get to the back page of the rules, and I'm just like, is this 15 points? Is it 20 points? Is it the first? And that to me is like, manage my expectations, and then the next thing to do is to explain everything in one chunks. If I'm doing actions, this is what I do. And at the end, on the back cover, right, on the back cover, have a round tracker. Tell me, you have a reminder on the back, because I am a memory beast and I just need kind of to be prodded. And that's the kind of, and I'm just wondering, am I,
Yeah, no, those are all fantastic. Yeah, I think a lot of times I read rules, not a lot of times, but there are times when I read rules and I think this perfectly explains the game if you already understand it. It's a catalog of an understanding of the game, as from the perspective of someone who knows already the mental model of the whole game and is just trying to document it. So it's a document of the truth of the game, but that's not how people read rule books. They read rule books having no mental model, and they're trying to build it. And just like you said, I think, yeah, you want that sort of high level, like this is the silhouette of the game.
Yes.
And then you want to kind of fill in the pieces. And then you want to like label it at the end with a nice little like quick to remember reference name tag, or if I'm just going with a really strange metaphor about the silhouette of a person as a rule book. But like that is, I think everything you said I totally agree with. But it's also hard. It's hard to see your rule book from the perspective of someone who doesn't already have a mental model of the game. And so playtesting your rule book and letting people play your game blind, with you watching or with you not watching, those are all great ways to learn what is not obvious to people who don't have a vision of what the game is overall.
Yeah. And also the other thing is, as well, is if you end up doing that, I know that of games that have huge rule books, multi-page rule books for a very, very simple game. And the rule book is amazing and does everything really, really well. But just by picking it up, you're kind of like, you're like this.
Right? It's part of the experience.
Oh my goodness, this is huge. This is a tome. This has got like 40 pages, yeah? This rule book is 40 pages, and again, I'm not going to mention what it is, but it does it perfectly. It's absolutely fantastic. However, it's the most daunting thing in the world when I first played it, because I went, this is 40 pages of rules. This is horrible. But as I go through, it says it does like, this is a round. This is how you play. This is how each of the different things play. Here's the exceptions to the rules. Here's the reminder on the back, and this is how you kind of win. So it's kind of lovely. It's kind of lovely with that. Bearing that in mind, when it's come to your own games, then, do you go much harder into the playtesting then? With the game, with the kind of, well, one of them's the book, but then you've got Bjarhar Hunt. So when you're playtesting your own game, do you got to remind yourself of your own playtesting that you got to teach yourself? You got to go like, I'm telling people they should be doing this, but I'm not doing this myself. I mean, do you go harder on when you're doing your playtesting for your own games then?
You mean, do I ever make the same mistake that I see other people make?
Yeah.
When I 100%. Well, and sometimes, especially first pass rule books, man, it's hard to figure out how to explain something. It's hard to figure out where to start to pull the thread. Like what's the right way? I'm working on a cooperative game that's not listed on the website with the code name is Creature Rescue, and basically you're working together to rescue animals, and when you get the engine of the game in your mind, it's not a complicated game, but to understand everything that needs to happen and to do it quote correctly, feels intimidating, and it is intimidating. Like there's a lot of design in that. Like you design the game, there's so much design in the tutorial experience, and in video games, like calling back to that, the tutorial experience is very like active. The game is kind of presenting it to you. In board games, there's a lot of subtlety to it, right? Like how is the book laid out? How big are the pictures? How many pages? Like those are things that also matter for how it feels to learn to play a game. How is it written? Is it written for read aloud? like because some groups may read, like those are all just different things that you don't have to think about with video games that could help your game be learnt by a family in an easier way. And I definitely, but it's a lot. It's a lot of design work. It's a lot of tough stuff. And so the first pass of a rule book for a game typically doesn't nail all those things the first time. It just can't. Because if I did that, I wouldn't show it until it was like polished, and then it would utterly fail, because that's what happens when you like just think about something hard and you don't actually play test it on the way and like see it. So that makes the first playtest, like any first playtest of a game, that can be like a lot. You can look at the playtest data, and I just did this recently over the summer, and be like, oh, so much of what was bad about the experience is how the game gets explained, and like the player aids or lack thereof, and how, just little pieces of UX that remind players about how things work and give them the affordances to sort of have that intuition of how it's supposed to work, or even just, changing the mechanics so that it fits that intuition better, right? If everybody gets something wrong, maybe you should just make wrong right, and everybody wins, and then they won't get it wrong anymore, and you'll feel clever, and they'll feel clever. So many of those things come out of the iteration. There's no way I'd get it right the first time, that's for sure.
I also wonder if that's the reason that that Rodney from Watch It Played is never ever going to be out of work, because he continually makes these these how to play videos. And I know of people that have, it's like we'll be talking about the next game that we're going to be playing at the Games Club, and one of the people that I speak to is like, has it got a Rodney video? Because if it's got a Rodney video, then they've got a way of, I could show them a rule book and they'll be like that. What? Oh, no. What page did you get to? 3. That's past the introduction. Yeah, I know. I'm just looking at the components. It's so confusing. But then Rodney comes on like with his he's almost like a really thick cardigan. You put it on top of you, and then you feel kind of warm and snuggly, and you say, right, I can crack on with this game, because he manages to kind of distill a game into the. I was learning to play Warhammer Underworlds, and I looked at the rule book, and it's a Games Workshop rule book where they're just, they're a multi-million pound, billion-pound business, but my word, those rule books are just like, it's like I was thinking of just setting it outside and just letting it go free and letting it try to survive by itself, because it was just like
develop its own consciousness.
Oh, it's just such a, it's like refer to this, here's a glossary, here's this, here's that, and I was just like, this is so bad. I went and put on Rodders, and he explained it, and I was just like, that I know how to play this game now. I can confidently walk in with my box of plastic that's going to last 50,000 years and put it on the table, and everything's going to kind of be fine. In terms of the games that you've created so far, it's a different kind of set. They seem to be ones that are like cooperative games for kids. And then you've got like The Riddle of Cloud Kingdom, which is your game book. And then is Diatoms a relatively new design journey for you? Or is it a case that it's been sitting in an A4 pad for like the last 8 years, and you just hadn't done anything with it yet because the timing wasn't right? Because I've seen that, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just that there's like a certain point where you say, right now I'm going to clean out the garage, kind of thing. And you're like, now I'm going to design this game. It's a good time to do it.
No, on the 8 years, I confidently can say that the game did like total origin no earlier than 2020, because I started working on this game through a fellowship that I received for 2021, and I started that conversation in 2020. And it's funny because when I started, I like cooperative games for kids and adults to play together, because the table talk is interesting. I have 2 kids. I that genre just did not exist when I was a kid growing up, and I think nowadays it's so much more prevalent for adults and kids to share all kinds of game experiences together. And I think cooperative games are a beautiful gem in that space. And so I aspire to make more cooperative games. I also think that it's hard. It's hard to design a great cooperative game that works really well, that's replayable with then spanning multiple ages. It's a hard, challenging problem. When I first started working on the game that would eventually become Diatoms, my idea was a cooperative game, and that would every time you played to be a little bit different, kind of like a slight version of Legacy, and like if you played like Zombie Kids or something like that. Along those veins. Something. I like that model, so I wanted to explore that design space, but I was also think part of the main idea of the grant was sort of thinky family game that would support math identity, be game first, but math identity would be in there. And Diatoms emerged through like an evolution, and it wasn't cooperative. It didn't have like any kind of like legacy light element to it, but it was really compelling. It was really, the gameplay was, at the time it didn't have a theme, but the gameplay was really compelling, and nothing else ever elevated above it. And so I was iterating on that. And I did experiment with a legacy version of it before it was themed Diatoms that was called Fraxagon. It's a long story, I can tell it, but the game was,
it's your night, as they say.
The pitch of the game is you've landed on an alien planet, and there's this crystal growth on the surface of the planet, and through a series of experiments you're going to discover that this crystal growth, like how to communicate and understand the growth patterns of this crystal covering on the surface of the planet. But you did that through this. There's no rule book. There's just a deck of cards, and the deck of cards come out over time and give you like the new set of rules to sort of run these experiments, aka sessions of the game. Some of which were cooperative, some of which were not cooperative. That all makes it sound like it exists as a full thing, and I do have a working prototype. But it never got to a place where I was like, yes, this is definitely. It was always interesting as a designer, and I maybe I'll go back to it. But it never was like, this is definitely gonna make it out into the world. It's not there yet. But that was kind of along the lines that in my sort of beautiful dream of mechanics when I first started out on the project, because it was semi-cooperative. At least there were elements of competition, but it was cooperative, and it was legacy, so there would be that interesting table talk. Diatoms is not either of those things. It's a great game, and I love where it turned out. And that just goes to show you that you don't always get to design what you think you're going to design, and you're going to have to be open, I think.
Because I'm looking at, and I've got two screens, which is why I'm like, you're going, why are they looking over there? Because I'm looking at the pictures of it. But where'd you get, the thing is, right, okay, so where'd you get, like, did you accidentally go down the wrong bit of YouTube? And then you're like, you're on the Diatoms page.
That's a good summary. I went to the aquarium.
Hey, okay.
I went to an aquarium, and there was a sign, and the sign had a photograph of various diatoms, and the sign was like, "We're growing beneficial algae." It's on a dolphin tank, and I could not get the sign. I had a game that was abstract that I didn't have a theme for, but I thought it was compelling. It was Fraxagon, not this iterative version, but just like a straight version of the game that was competitive. And I saw the sign. I just like, oh, diatoms. I probably heard that word in middle school or something, learning in biology, but I hadn't thought about it if I ever did. But they just looked so cool. So then I fell down an internet rabbit hole. That is how I describe it. And in that process, I saw a diatom mosaic. Because if you look up diatoms and you start to like, you'll see this picture, be like, what the heck is that? And you look at it, and it's a mosaic made out of single cell algae. And when I saw that, it was like, it's like a mind virus. I couldn't unthink about it. And I also almost immediately was like I have a design log where I write down, occasionally like the notes of what I'm doing. And my entry there is diatoms, all caps, with a couple links. But that was like, after I saw one of those, I was like, this is the theme of the game, I think, Yeah. And then within 2 months, I had something that looks a lot like the final version of the game, and doing a lot of what the current game does. And it was just, which made me really happy because I thought diatom mosaics were amazing. And I immediately wanted to make part of my goal, just let other people know about this amazing little scientific art form, and just let everybody be delighted, because I found it delightful and I wanted to share that delight with as many people as possible. And I had the game. I had a game basis. I had, like, if you will, a pizza base, and then these pineapple mosaic toppings on the pizza. And I was like, I'm going to serve that beautiful
with
pizza.
Pineapple.
Yes,
With pineapple.
to the world.
But then it sounds like it then expired. It was an inspiration to kind of finish the game, because you said the previous game were thereabouts, whereas this seems like I had this idea and I just smashed it down on the table and it just worked and everything was fantastic and I was kind of able to kind of move on to it. How long was it then to take it to development, and then how easy was it to kind of get it kind of play tested?
Well, full development, like I said, started like doing pre-work, just thinking about what the game could possibly direction, like back in the beginning of 2021. And then I had a version of the game, like core mechanics, in the summer of 2021. And I did a lot of iteration on it. And then in early 2022, I was kind of stuck on it. I was experimenting with this weird version that I was telling you about that was kind of like legacy-ish with a deck of cards. But I didn't know if that would go anywhere. And the main game, like the gameplay was, I think from a mechanic standpoint, I thought there was something there and it was compelling to play, but it didn't have the joy of a theme. It didn't have the like appeal that a theme brings to a game. And so I was like on the hunt for what's going to help like breathe the breath of life into this game. And Diatoms, the theme became that breath of life. And just totally worked. And then by the first version of that, you were, for the purposes of prototyping mostly, you were drawing your mosaic. You didn't have tiles, because it was much easier to prototype that. That was compelling, but it had some pacing issues. And then I playtested the tile version at the end of 2022. And my first playtest that wasn't like me and my partner who collaborates with all my designs, was at PAX Unplugged.
Wow.
And as soon as it was on the table and I watched the first game, I was like, this is the game. This is the version I have to make, because the pacing was so much better. Like it had all the good things for the most part, except the cost to produce. It lost, like, it's fun to draw. That the drawing part is fun, and maybe I'll do something that kind of spin off our little like print and play. I have a little print and play version of the game, so maybe there's more to that can be explored with the drawing. But the tile placement was right for the pacing of the game. It just made the game snappier. There's a little asynchronousness to the turns for players, because they can take their tiles and then think about how they're going to arrange their mosaic as other people are moving. So it picks up the whole game, and then it's so beautiful. It embodies and evokes the beauty of the Diatoms with these shiny tiles. The game has changed a lot in very tiny ways since then.
Yes.
But I would say December 2022 basically had the game as it was. The only thing that's major that's shifted is I've added a solo variant that I developed this past summer. So it'll be a couple years of the full cycle, and then the physical games, I'm on Kickstarter now.
Yes.
The physical games will be arriving to people next July. So 2024, so 3 years. Yeah.
In terms of then, in terms of how you play, can you describe an actual round of the game? We are almost at the 45-minute mark, which is when, as I said, people get to talk about this is, it's like if I was like some kind of serial murderer type of thing. He says, well, he plays with his food for about the first 45 minutes and then he gets the landing blow. It's the only thing that we've got to go on. I could use a different analogy to that. I don't think murderer is a good one to go with.
Okay.
But if I'm playing a round, what am I doing in a round? In Diatoms.
First thing you're going to do is get a water tile from the draw piles. And then you'll have 3 to pick from. And then you're going to place one of those water tiles in the center shared space. It's called the algae pond. And by placing it there, you're sort of revealing the pond. And the place where you place it, it makes an intersection of at least 3 tiles. And that's a sample point. So you take there's a little lens tool and you use that to look at that intersection, and based on the makeup of that intersection, what algae colors are there and how much of them, that determines which diatom species you're able to collect.
Right.
And then there's little petri dishes full of diatom tiles, and you grab your diatom tiles and bring them over to your microscope slide board. And then the next player can start their turn at that point. And you will be choosing where to place your tiles on your slide board. And then when turn comes back around to you, you do it again.
How long does it last then? I mean, would you consider it kind of like is it a couple of hours? Is it a standard kind of?
Oh, no. It's 2-player game is 10 rounds, and a 3 or 4-player game is 8 rounds. So it usually lasts 30 to 40 minutes.
Oh, right. Okay.
I mean, first game might take a little bit longer if you're learning to play, but yeah, it's a pretty snappy game. And that's one of the reasons why the tile direction was definitely the right call for the experience, because it just keeps the game moving pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, the thing, I've seen people kind of play like cartographers, and folk are like drawing out the kind of the shapes, and you get some people who literally, it's like, so that's an oak. No, that's an ash tree actually, and the bird's nest.
Yeah.
Well, I think you'll find that's European swallow in there, as you can tell by the way I've drawn the twigs and the wingspan of that little bird. And and other people are like,
I think that's delightful, but it may not fit in game night timeline for people.
Or you get people that going, well, it's a tree, isn't it? It's a triangle on a stick.
The whole
it's
spectrum.
A triangle on a stick.
Yeah.
And folk don't, some people just don't like that. They don't like it's like, I don't want to put my artistic skills out on display. You're not here to value your art. You're here to value the fact that I've just sent a whole pile of goblins your way, and you're just going to lose points for the kind of the rest of the round, which is kind of fine. How's it been in terms of approaching the kind of the marketing? Because one of the things we've kind of slid away from is the whole, there's the Cardboard Edison Award kind of thing, which you're humble enough, obviously, to have not kind of mentioned in it. Because I would be like, your man out of Will and Grace going, a Mac Award, a Mac Award, a Mac Award kind of thing. Which you've not, I mean, how did that, was that kind of like, you actually, this is people like this, and I just don't like it because it's my baby, but other people kind of really like it as well to kind of vote it kind of thing. Must have been weird.
Oh yeah, no, the Cardboard Edison was a big milestone in that sort of understanding that the game was hitting a really great note for people, because these are people who are in industry, who've got published games, they're companies, like they don't know me because I'm pretty new to the board game industry, so there's no like, it's just like, is like a blind, it was a very validating experience to be selected as a finalist for the game. And it was also a great validation for the game, for it to be selected for the, as the winner. Like, and it cemented, after I tested at PAX Unplugged, I did feel that the game had potentially to like go to crowdfund and be successful and to be published. And I was thinking maybe, it's not the game you'd advise anybody to make as their first game that they're going to publish, because there's a lot of pieces. So it doesn't tick any of the boxes that I had previously. Talk about not taking your own advice. I definitely advised myself to make like a card only game, or maybe maybe dice. Yeah. In fact, that's what Unicorn Clinic was supposed to be. But man, Diatoms just like punch those unicorns back. So after that, I was like, this could be a good game. So then I submitted to Cardboard Edison, and then that was really validating and made me feel like, yes, I definitely want to move forward with crowdfunding this for sure, because it's gotten good reception, and it's continued to get really good reactions from people. I think it hits a note. It's a wonderful time to be making a science board game. I'll say that there's a lot of great nature themed board games out there. Yes. And it feels like we're having sort of a, like, Renaissance, not the right word, but there's this like moment where we're kind of seeing it rise up. And so it's a great moment for that.
what has it been like kind of going out there and doing the marketing side of things then? Is that been kind of a new thing? Because playtesting is playtesting, but marketing is going out and saying, look at my stuff, it's awesome. And you're just like going, well,
you nailed it. Yeah, no, I have a lot of experience playtesting, no problem. And playtesting is you're definitely not trying to be braggy about the game. Like you're there to learn, not tell people what they think. Marketing is really different for me and hard for me. I am working right now with a partner, Gina Said So Studio. It's helping with the Kickstarter.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I have learned so much. And I've gotten a lot more comfortable doing social media, for example, and promoting myself in the games, but it's still not a place that brings me joy. So it's still a place where it's like work in a really like sort of draining way. But I am learning and getting better at it. It's hard. And I have to, my goal is, at least I'm bringing this game to market, and I want to hopefully do more games as well myself. And so it's just part of the lay of the land. It's exciting to learn new things, but this is a hard thing for me for sure.
It's awful. I mean, because it's like I want to play games with my friends and that's it. I don't want to go out in front of like several hundred people and tell them about it, and especially have to tell them it's very wonderful and kind of very, very good. Because it's almost like, I don't know, there's an expectations on kind of like game designers to say like, well, you're expected to kind of be like the triple threat. You're expected to be like a really good game designer. You're expected to kind of like know how to market out there, and you're also expected to know how to deliver it. And it's like I don't remember ever turning up at a games group where I was playtesting and saying, okay, this is all really good, but can you tell me how much it's going to be to ship 15 pallets of this from China into the kind of like the main port and cover all the taxes? And you're just like, no.
Yes, I was not prepared for this. I will say that I have found the board game community of designers to be very welcoming and sharing so far. I've had the luck to interact with people who are willing to sort of share their experience and chat about things. So I've learned a lot by talking to other people, by and there are also like thought leaders in the space that are public, semi-public figures in board games who are willing to like write about it stuff and talk about it publicly in a way that I would never. I'm not like super keen to make YouTube videos of myself talking. Even doing podcasts is a new thing for me, although I'm starting to get used to it. I've done a few for Diatoms now, and it's fine. It's good. But it's not like my default. Whereas there are other people for whom like talking in front of people and sharing that in that way on a regular basis, like making content about their process is a huge part of their process, and they're good at it. Yeah. And I think that's super beneficial for people to be able to like absorb that and consume that. Even if you don't know that person personally, you can kind of like see a little bit behind the curtain of what they experienced.
Yeah. I mean, there's some people that are really good at kind of like putting their design thoughts out there all the time. I mean, Frank West does it. Gabe Barrett, I think, the Board Game Design Lab, he does an awful lot. And obviously, Mr. Stegmaier is constantly kind of just throwing stuff out there all the time, kind of thing, which is kind of fun and interesting and all very good. In terms of cost and money and that horrible stuff like that, how much does a pledge cost? How much does it? I was going to say, what's it cost to get your foot in the petri dish? But I don't know if you want to do that because you might break it.
The backer price for one copy of Diatoms is $45 plus shipping and applicable tax when the game ships. And then if you want to get two and give one to your science-loving, puzzle game-loving friend, or I don't know, someone who likes Victorian vibes in a game, any of those things, or you just want to play with 8 people, I don't know, you can try that. There's a double Diatoms for $85.
It's double threat. It's like tag teaming in World Wrestling Federation, if you were going to be taking part in a board game tag team event and you were planning that for next year and you were wondering what double board game you were going to take with you, in order to win the tag team championship, you should pledge $85 or £71, and you will get 2 copies of Diatoms. The other thing is as well is that you've also got digital Diatoms, which is the digital version of Diatoms on Screentop, and it's exclusive to backers until July.
Well, there's this exclusive version. There is a public demo as well. So you can play Diatoms on Screentop. It's on the screentop.gg homepage, and you can give it a spin. Not all the guest judges are in there, and there's only a few of the solo puzzles that are in there. And then for backers, and it has art. No, it doesn't have all the final art in it. For backers, within 48 hours of backing, I send you a link to the backer version. So before the campaign ends, every day I'm putting a new prototype commission puzzle. Commissions is the solo variant of Diatoms, where instead of making a mosaic that gets scored, you're instead making there's a prompt of I want a mosaic that looks like a flower. Yeah. And this is kind of like what I want. So you try to complete that mosaic within certain parameters. And so I have a bunch of prototypes of that, and I'm still deciding which ones are going to make it into the shipped physical game. And I'm inviting backers to try a new one every day if they want. Mm-hmm. And then after the Kickstarter campaign ends, all the backers at digital Diatoms level or above will get a permanent Screentop key to continue to access the game. And that the demo will go away, and backers will have access through exclusively through July when the game ships. Then after that, there may be maybe I'll open it up more, but that way people who support the game will be able to play it. The nice thing is on Screentop, you can invite anybody to play. So if you're a backer and you've got a key to Diatoms, you can start a room and you can invite someone else to join your room.
Cool.
And it runs in any browser. So there's a lot of nice pieces to it in terms of accessibility.
I don't think I've seen that before. I'll be honest with you. I've not seen somebody actually doing a Screentop saying you can actually come ahead and kind of play the game. I think that's unusual. And also I've seen people kind of say, well, you can go to Tabletop Simulator and try it there. But having something like that's intriguing. That is intriguing to me. There's lots of days left, isn't there? I mean, you've got we've got 4 weeks at time of recording, and you are currently. How's your F5 key? Have you worn it out yet? With refreshing the page, is it holding up well? I definitely as the day was ending yesterday, I was I'm writing down my piece of advice to anybody doing a Kickstarter themselves and to myself right now. Just close the window. Yes. Just put it away for a little while and then come back and don't look at it, because you get and the first couple hours it's super satisfying because there's that immediate hit every time more people. And then at some point it starts to slow down, and now you're just doing work that feels it doesn't feel meaningful, but I don't know, the clicking tricks your brain into it's meaningful. Meanwhile, I have other things that I should be doing. Exactly. So the F5, the clicking the button, the switching windows, the picking up the phone, all those variations, I've definitely been doing them. I can't avoid it, but I'm trying to tell, my inner coach is don't do it. Close the window, walk away, leave your phone at home for the evening walk. Yeah, but the old lizard brain's come on.
Oh yeah.
let's just press that button. Let's just press that button.
It's really hard to turn off. And of course, I want the exciting moment of that the game is fully funded. I'm looking forward to that celebratory moment. I can't look away 100%, but I am trying to not have it consume every moment of my eyeball time.
It's at £11,208 at the moment. I'm just saying. Don't check. You're not allowed to check. It's $13,609. So there you go. If people don't, you dare. If people have listened along today and they've went, oh, this is really fun. And they want to just find out more about yourself in general, where do you exist on the internet webs? Where can they find you?
My Little Liminal presence is primarily on Instagram. That's where I usually post. I'm also on Blue Sky, both as Little Liminal and myself, Sabrina C. I do have a Twitter account, though I'm posting a little bit there for the start of the campaign. I know you're going to correct me to X. I can't. It doesn't make sense in a sentence, so I don't know. I'm there less and less. I was never there a ton. Yeah. There's also a Facebook presence. I have a brand new TikTok for Little Liminal, which apparently I did something wrong and I got shadow banned, so I can't follow anyone we'll see how many days that lasts. I don't know. They thought I was a bot. But the primary, Instagram is the place where I like to post on the socials because it's visual forward and I like that, and it's usually short content.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we won't take those. We'll take all of the links and we'll put them in the show notes so that we have got notes to show. And and
a Kickstarter link.
Oh yeah, that one.
I'll send you that one.
That'd be good. Just a hint.
And of course, littleliminal.com and diatomsthegame.com are two websites as well.
Kickstarter.com/projects. I'll put the links in the show notes, everybody. It's not like anybody, you know, it's like,
you can just go and like search Diatoms.
There's
only one other project, I think, in the history of Kickstarter about Diatoms, and it was a book.
So there you go.
At least last time I checked. So if you just search Diatoms, you'll definitely
find it.
Yeah.
And if you want to find out what we're up to, and I don't know why so many of you do, and sometimes there's more of you finding out what we're up to, and that kind of is scary because it's like, you know, I guess if things are only getting better and also worse at the same time, so maybe you're trying to seek me for a refuge, I have no idea. Just go to the internet webs and search for We're Not Wizards and you'll find us in all the different places where people exist electronically online. You can find our blog, which is we'renotwizards.co.uk. You can find the place where the podcast exists, which is we'renotwizards.com. And we're on all the different social medias as well. If you've listened along and you've went, this is quite fun, I like this, then please go to your podcast catcher of choice and drop us a subscription. And if you like us a little bit more, drop us a rating or a review. If you are going to be giving us a rating or a review, don't give us 10 stars because it makes me big-headed. But at the same time, don't give me 1 because it makes me cry. Give me something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average. And I'm just a little bit average, but the person who's not been average is rather wonderful, rather fantastic. Sabrina Solba, thank you very, very much for guesting.
Thank you for having me.
And there's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we're many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards?
No.
Yes. It's about time. I was having a run of people that were just bringing the magic thing in, and they were just disappointing me completely. And it's good to see you're not following in those footsteps. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Sabrina. Say goodbye, Sabrina.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, make something awful or small, like really small, like tiny algae size. Until the next time, goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.